queue. Hjärnan has been putting a few games on this, but definitely not something you expect to see. Seems more like a solo queue pick than a meta pick at this point.
Yeah, I find it really interesting too, because coming into these drafts, I really expected attention at VODS. G2 banned that away because this is the best champion for both of our bot laners in this match and could really limit the pool now that Heimerdinger is banned as well for Hjärnan on G2.
Gotta look at an early priority on things like the braum, but a lot of junglers have been left up as well. Yesterday we saw a huge emphasis on taking away the Sejuani, largely because of how consistent Amazing was on it, but it seems that it's being left open today. Both Jankos and Maxlore have played it, but we are seeing support priority. Instead though, it's onto the Alistar.
And I like this.
Yeah, I mean, Alistar coming in, heavy playmaking support for Mikyx in the bottom lane. We saw big nerfs to Tahm Kench, Wadid's most played champion. That was the safety net for G2's bot lane. I think Hansam and Mikyx are going to go super aggressive and be looking for kills all series long.
And perfect, exactly what you want from the Alistar. The aggressive plays, the aggressive engages, the tankiness that he gets from that ultimate. But G2 grabbing some more standard picks here. The Gragas, a potential flex, although most recently pretty much entirely seen in the jungle. The question is, what do they round this out with? Do they grab a support of their own? Braum's still available, and they are going to take it.
I feel like they're the two strongest in the current meta. And I feel like G2 don't want to reveal anything too early. They still want to hold on to that support pick. Something that you talked about, Ender, was the potential for an Ashe. Whoa!
Whoa!
Lock in.
All right.
My words.
We can talk about the Skarner later. People have seen Skarner does the same thing it's always done literally forever, but Kalista, Alistar.
So we got to talk about how this bot lane has been finding so many early advantages in the first half of the split. That is how Misfits won games. Drafting Kalista, Alistar is all about winning that bot lane, and G2 answer by saying we're looking to win mid.
It's so easy for a Kalista All-Star to just go in, look for kills in the laning phase. You can close the gap and absolutely make plays. But on the other side, we saw LeBlanc priority rising yesterday in our series between Splyce and Schalke. Playmakers for the solo lanes is how G2 typically look to win their games, and LeBlanc can do it for PerkZ.
And most importantly, a playmaker for PerkZ. When he has the potential to pop off, to win games in decisive moments, he almost always executes. If you put him on something like the Orianna that falls away, give him those individual style champs, see what he can do. But I see a recipe for success here from Misfits already. They haven't even shown their solo lane picks, and already I think we know what they're getting up to.
Yeah, it's all about the bottom lane for them, and we already see, I love these bans from Misfits. They're taking away safe options for Hjärnan. The Heimerdinger is something they can shove easily, clear waves. Ezreal, very safe, can dodge wait. Ban these types of champions out, and it will open up the opportunity for Misfits to visit this bottom lane so consistently.
Now, G2 have banned away some of the strong mid lane answers to LeBlanc in the Galio. We did see Cassio coming out yesterday from Niski as an answer to it.
And the Wunder Gangplank coming in. This feels like Spring Split G2 to me. It feels like it's all about the top side of the map.
Feels like they're putting Wunder on a carry and banning away the Rumble, trying to basically look to play through the top side. Very G2 standard, which is pick a defensive bot lane, try and keep them alive, and then try to find advantages up towards the top side of the map. Misfits right now, it's just a hover, gentlemen. Don't get too excited until it's locked in. But for Misfits, I would expect them to largely play around bot side, pick a tank up top.
I'm glad you said it. I was going to ask for permission to get excited. This is not nearly as exciting. Tanky top side, kind of expected. And to be fair, this is kind of what we want from Misfits generally when we see their drafts.
Exactly. We don't want Maxlore playing around the top side. Don't get me wrong, Alphari is a fantastic player, but the way Misfits went 9-0 in the first half of the summer split was with tanks in the top lane and playing through mid and bottom lane. You can roam with a TF and gank bot so many times.
Misfits looking to play through the style that they found that 9-0 record with. Play through bot. The question is, will G2 allow them to do that?
Oh.
Generates a huge amount of pressure in the mid lane, and G2 now rounding things out with a scaling hyper carry towards the bot side of the
This is risky from G2 because we know Misfits look to play through bottom side. When you pick a Gangplank, you usually have some jungle attention. Try to keep him safe. When you pick a Kog'Maw, similar things do happen. This is really gonna, tear Jankos to different sides of the map, and I think Misfits, with a focused approach, could actually have the advantage here coming out of draft.
We have a clear battle of styles. Misfits looking to play through the bot side of the map, G2 looking to play through the top side. And the thing for G2 is, I don't know how easy it is going to be for Sencux to move around the bot side, because this is one of PerkZ's best champions. Throughout the EU LCS history, PerkZ has a 14-1 record on the champion. He loves playmakers, he is extremely clutch, and this is the second appearance of G2 in a quarterfinal. They want to make it to another final, they want to make it their 6th in a row, and pressure is going to be on PerkZ to perform once again.
And on the other side, Misfits, all about the bottom lane. Two different lanes highlighted here so clearly for us. You could not want more from a draft like this. PerkZ, all eyes on him for the side of G2 and the G2 fans. Misfits Gaming, Hansama. We know how incredibly powerful this player can be, but is he going to get the chance to go off here? Will they be successful in snowballing the bottom side of the map?
That's got to be the approach for them right here. We know how much they can do. I think mid lane too is a viable option. PerkZ doesn't have a cleanse in the mid lane. When you go against a Twisted Fate, there's a lot of avenue of approach, but again, it is a risky pick as well if Jankos gets involved around PerkZ in the middle lane.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. G2 versus Misfits was a final last year. This year, it's a quarter. Everything on the line for both of these teams dropping out. You will be trying to qualify through that gauntlet and very well near the bottom. But winning here earns you a ticket to Madrid, puts you up in the semifinals versus Fnatic. But gentlemen, mid lane matchup, I'm already seeing some stuff I am not used to. You mentioned the lack of cleanse. Let's talk about the grasp of the Undying on the Twisted Fate.
So I've never seen this before, Drakos. I am very skeptical. It gives him HP because he's in Resolve to survive against Burst, but the Grasp of the Undying as a ranged character, you're not going to get that same level of effectiveness. We'd expect something maybe like the Unsealed Spellbook in the past, but Grasp of the Undying is not that.
I mean, his whole goal is just to survive in this lane, right? He understands that he's not going to have that pressure. Once he gets a couple levels under his belt, he will have the wave clear to kind of mitigate some of that pressure, but early on, he's expecting to be harassed. He's having to zone out, and now Mikyx could be in some trouble.
4 stacks will connect. Hansama is here for a little bit of follow-up, but good use of the lack of vision on the brush there to back off. And I think you're so right, that defensive's choice from Sencux, because it's not even fleet footwork, which we have seen once or twice on TFs internationally. This is the next level. I have accepted I will lose this lane, and this game is not about me. It's about that bottom lane instead.
Yeah, I'm curious. I want to get a chance to talk to him after the game, because again, never before seen this, but G2 have been in this situation before where they played against Misfits. Historically, 13 wins to 5 losses. They have had Misfits' number throughout their reign in the EU LCS, and now Misfits fighting for a spot to go to Madrid. It's gonna be so huge. They have to beat out this Titan of the EU LCS.
And the story for both these teams are so interesting and also so sad because they started so dominant here this season. We expected them to be number 1, number 2, respectively, fighting with Fnatic for that bye. Vitality comes out of nowhere. These teams collapse in the second half of the split, and now they're duking it out here in the quarterfinal, trying so hard to prove themselves and to prove that they're both worthy of being at the top of the EU LCS once again.
And remember that this bottom lane is what it's all about for Misfits. Hansama and Mikyx level 2, they can all of a sudden go in level 3, more CC tools given to Mikyx, and bot lane for G2, they just have to back away. They're running teleport on Hjärnan. It's all about scaling up and getting time for themselves.
And Misfits, when they found leads in the first half of the split, it was largely through the bottom lane and largely through the early game. We look at the first half versus the second half, you can see that the goal difference at 15 for Misfits on average was 3,700 goals. They would usually take 2 towers by the 15-minute marks, and they would on average find 5 kills. You can see how in the second half, when they went on that 2-7 record, things did not look as clean for them.
And let's take a look at that 2-7 record another way, because dominance for Misfits was the story at the start of the split, and now as things start to turn, you can see how difficult it was. H2K, UOL, those are the teams that they beat in the second half, and people weren't expecting a lot from this team going into playoffs, but the return to this bottom lane focused style is exactly what everyone wanted to see from this lineup.
It absolutely is, because that first loss was against Fnatic. Caps bodied Sencux in the mid lane. Got nervous, wasn't picking that Yasuo anymore. Now, again, he's on a roaming champion. This is what we love to see from Sencux in years past. We can go and affect other lanes on the map, and we'll be paying very close attention to the level 6 markers for both Sencux and Maxlore when they get those super high cooldown, high impact abilities to make plays happen. But for now, Jankos, he went back to base, he has Predator boots, and is looking to gank top.
Cho'Gath has to be careful, feeling comfortable in this lane match, but here comes Jankos. He's been spotted on the vision, but that is one fast Gragas. Tries to sidestep there, buying a bit of time. They're going through this one slow. The flash out from Alphari, but still getting the follow-up from Jankos. Good patience there. Red buff taken down. Wunder's going to go for it. He has a flash of his own. Doesn't want to commit. They'll take the small advantage, but immediately the engage on the bottom side as the jungler has been spotted, trying to press an advantage here. But Mikyx taking the bad end of a trade. Good confidence from Hjärnan to turn that one back.
But look at where Maxlore is. You can see him hanging around the bottom half of the map. Twisted Fate, not level 6 yet, but does have the push on the wave, and he's actually doing really well in terms of the mid lane farm. That grasp and kind of defensive rune choice is helping him out a lot in this 1-versus-1 matchup. Things so far going pretty well in terms of the early game for Misfits.
Yeah, and if we're looking for mid lane to change it all, it's through the effects of these two junglers, both having Predator, both having options to go into the middle lane. Maxlore's just here to help Sencux push this one out, but you'll notice he got control over both Scuttle Crabs. Jankos went for a little bit of a harder clearing route where he was able to go back very early and get those Predator boots, and he got the flash. Now he just needs to repeat top lane for Wunder.
Otherwise, this is just going to put him in a solid deficit here. You can see the difference in jungle CS, 34 to 20. Will be 24 shortly as Jankos clears out this camp, but that's the trade-off. You're so right, Ender. Will we see the rinse and repeat topside? Because Maxlore's getting ready. They both have Predator, and level 6s, as you mentioned, being crucial. Well, they're right around the corner for both these junglers.
I'm really excited to see who makes the first move in this matchup. Many of the analysts were kind of split in their expectations. On paper, G2 look like the favorites. They had a better second half of the split relative to Misfits, and they've looked good comparatively, especially even in their losses in the tiebreaker. Those are some very close tiebreakers, and in many instances they were close to coming back to those games thanks to some very impressive team fighting and some really great individual plays. But Misfits always have that surprise factor. Whenever people doubt them is when they always show up the most, and especially in a best-of-5 where they can adapt as the series progresses. It just leads to a very exciting best-of-5.
Yeah, and right now Maxlore's walked over so much vision around this top side of the map. It really just shows you how much stock G2 put in both Wunder and PerkZ trying to keep them safe. And he doesn't know that there's actually a control ward here, so it's going to be very easy for Wunder to shove up on the top side of the map. And if they see Maxlore go up past that ward, Jankos is going to be there for the counter and look for that 2v2.
Now, I do want to just plant the seed that a gank top lane for Misfits would not be that unsurprising, because one of the things we used to see a lot of, especially against Gangplanks, is a dive onto him, because he can't really do much in a 2-versus-1, and once Alphari gets his level 6, he actually has a lot of kill threat. And right now, he is chasing onto Wunder. He has
timing at level 6, doesn't need anything else. I don't think Wunder saw it coming. I don't think he knew the level 6 was right there. Immediately the use of Feast to secure first blood.
This has happened before. Alphari getting solo kills against Wunder in the top lane in matchups. You just don't expect it to happen.
This is the thing. It happened in the same way when G2 came back from Rift Trials. People were like, this has got to be the best team right now. He walks into that top lane matchup as Gangplank. Solo dies to Mundo. It's happening again here in the quarterfinals. G2 have to be a little bit shaken up.
And the most frustrating part for G2 on this side as well is G2 had Jankos actually recall right away. Wunder sticking around without support from his jungler. And Maxlore's there to make sure there was no 2v2, it was just the 1v1.
Now, Alphari managed to get level 6 off the AoE wave clear that he has from his E. The minions die passively around him. He takes the level up, gets the ulti one-shot, and finds an early kill in favor of Misfits. Now, his flash is nearly back up. G2 find themselves at a 1,000 gold deficit 7 minutes into the game, and this just gives more freedom for Misfits to look to play through bot side of the map further.
Yeah, because right now it's almost a 20 CS advantage for Hansama over Hjärnan. Even with the Scuttle Crab Shrine here giving G2 full knowledge of what's going on, Misfits are starting the Drake. Remember how good the objective secure of a Kalista is, and the weakness right now of G2's bottom lane can't contest.
And additionally, you're up against that level 6 Skarner. He was topside, he didn't burn anything there, so he has the Predator, he has the flash, he is ready to go in if you misstep, and just using that threat to secure the Dragon. Ocean now secured for Misfits. Small gold lead at this point in the game, but already a solid start in the early game. Maybe not what we expect in the second half, but good to see them return to at least a little bit of that form.
Misfits so far looking good, Sencux staying alive, and one of the things that we didn't talk a huge amount about, but when Sencux had success in the past was when he was on these roaming mid lane champions. You always think Galio, Aurelion, Sol, Talia, stuff that can just clear out the mid wave and then look to play towards sides. Now, in the second half of the split, he was playing a lot of control mages. I said on PGL last night, I hated watching him play control mages. Azir, Orianna were never his specialty. But now on this Twisted Fate, not only is he doing extremely well in the lane, but he's hit level 7. And if we're going to see him roam, he has so many options. He can look to go top, he can look to dive bots, but as long as he's working with Maxlore, another early advantage can be gained for the side of Misfits.
And the important thing is that he's not playing to actually win mid lane. You notice his first recall was actually Mercury Treads. That is very much a defensive buy. He wants the movement speed to be able to close the gap and drop down to gold. gold card when he does go into a side lane. So it plays into this idea that it's not about him winning mid, it's about him getting the rest of his team ahead.
But also denying PerkZ the ability to snowball. And I think that's the most important thing, because when you think about G2 and a lot of their success, it often comes down to either clutch plays from PerkZ or him finding leads and bringing it to the rest of the map. And the fact that so far, 9 minutes into the game, he does have a healthy CS lead, but he hasn't been able to find anything yet. Now, I'm not going to start panicking. We saw Nukeduck yesterday in exactly the same boat. Once he completes his first item, though, that's when I want to see PerkZ doing something on the map.
And of course, for Sencux, this champion has been played by him this split. He was down 45 CS at 15 minutes last time he played it. So expectations for this man, 10 down, 10 minutes, you're doing fine. It's okay to go a little bit behind here. You did not set yourself up to win lane, as already mentioned. You're not hemorrhaging gold. And it looks like Misfits are actually ready to play around the mid lane if necessary to stop PerkZ from doing anything else.
Yeah, this is something you'll see so often when a support goes back to base, return to the map, run past that mid lane with your jungler, and get full control over the river as you go bot lane.
Comes the TF, immediately the gold card comes out. Wadid going to block what he can. He's leaping back to safety. Jankos is here with a disengage. They're going to throw out the ulti. It only connects onto Skarner, and both sides are going to back away.
So a trade of flashes there from both sides. I like the roam up into the mid lane from Mikyx. He wanted to just help Maxlore secure that vision of the river so they could look for that roam, but it was a little telegraph, which means Hjärnan saw it coming. He positioned in a way where he did still have to burn his flash, but he does get out with his life.
And I think Sencux also just maybe went a little bit too early because Maxlore and Mikyx were not quite ready to make that play happen. You can see though up top side, if Wunder ever goes melee range onto Alphari, it's not good.
Oh, Wunder
not good.
flash. Here's it gonna go. Is he gonna get it? Oh, nom 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 nom. Gets
Tasty
it down.
TP.
And they get the bot lane tower as well. So much is going right for Misfits right now.
This is not what you expected at all. Yes, playing around the bottom side is true, but Alphari just straight up solo killing Wunder twice in the top side is not the plan for G2. They're supposed to have the winning solo lanes, be able to pressure out and get the map advantage. But right now, just Misfits taking control seemingly everywhere.
The 2 and 7 Misfits looking revitalized in this best of 5, and a lot of it is coming off the back of a second solo kill from Alphari. He has been the most consistent player of this squad so far this split, and finding a kill onto Wunder, who, if you ask many pros, would consider the best top laner in Europe. Alphari is doing it again and shutting him down.
And as soon as Wunder turns around for the parlay, it locks him in animation for a moment. That guarantees the rupture to land by the Cho'Gath. At that point, the GP is just a dead man walking.
A beautiful use of the Cho'Gath. This is a pick that normally don't expect a ton from. Just kind of that tank, just kind of that body on the top side. Can obviously be very good, but these snowball performances have been few and far between this split. Good to see Alphari get this start, and Mikyx looking to keep it running as they shift their pressure to the bottom side. Bot lane is up here now, and Misfits want to keep growing this gold lead.
Yeah, they want to get as many towers as they possibly can so they can split up the map and then use the global pressure of the Twisted Fate to pick off members trying to split in the side lane like a Gangplank or like a LeBlanc, and of course it positions them around the Rift Herald as well, which is fantastic.
The thing is, this is 9-0 Misfits. They secure a very early bot tower, not through kills this time, but they're able to secure it nonetheless because they have that strong winning 2 versus 2. They then take an early bot side Drake, around the 10-minute mark. They then rotate up towards top side, take a Rift Herald after gaining full control over the top side enemy jungle, and it's literally just a step-by-step process. When you speak to any pro, these guys are considered textbook, and that's what you're seeing right now.
This is the textbook, as you said it. Go bot side, get one objective, get the tower as well, swap bot side, you're getting a tower, you're getting a Rift Herald as well. And right now, yes, it's only a 2K gold lead, but with the Rift Herald, it's set up to grow even further for the side of Misfits, and G2 have to be feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're uncomfortable, but they know exactly what's coming next because Misfits have both turrets in the side lanes. They just picked up the Rift Herald. The play is now in the mid lane. They're going to look for that next turret, and once that happens, that's when Misfits just take over the game entirely. All the towers are down. They can invade the jungle and just try to choke out resources from G2's side.
And now I think the biggest concern is, we talked earlier about PerkZ not having the cleanse, not having some of those disengage options. There's a Skarner, there's a Twisted Fate. If PerkZ missteps, if he tries to clear these waves too aggressively, he could die. That could be the tower going down, and the gold lead will just continue to grow. But for now, G2 get to farm. They have to play the laning phase just a little bit longer before Misfits make their next move.
And this is really scary for G2 because you notice, but right now, both side lanes are sort of locked in the middle with minions dying, and Hjärnan and Wadid, they can't really walk up and try to clear those minions because Hjärnan doesn't have flash. You know Sencux has the ultimate, so no one can really go into a side lane for G2.
What you'll see now is Misfits push up top, regain vision control over the top side of G2's jungle, then group mid with the Rift Herald. They'll then take the mid tower and look to play towards Drake. you can see that a bot is slowly starting to push towards Alphari, so he can happily catch that wave. But it's really important that they have this topside vision before they can look to make a mid lane play. But
There's Maxlore ready for a little bit more. Now going to throw it in. The chain CC comes out. Jankos doesn't even get a push any buttons. Red card comes through, but it doesn't matter. That's the kill.
And G2 don't respect the play from Misfits. They have pressure top lane. They have priority mid. They have the numbers advantage, and he gives away a kill over to Misfits and likely the mid lane turret.
G2 went heavy scaling in both top lane and bottom lane. Misfits have been able to punish so far. They're going to try to keep pressing this advantage further. They're going to get more damage on this mid lane tower. Again, go back, as you said, for that Ocean Drake.
This is literally textbook from Misfits, and the big mistake from Jankos is that he wasn't reading the guide. He didn't realize that, hey, there are 4 members of Misfits topside, and he ends up going down for it. Now, Misfits, they could look to play towards Ocean Drake, but because there's 4 members mid from G2, if they do that, they could end up losing their mid tier 1.
PerkZ doing what he can to get a little bit more harassment back, and you can see the Misfits taking a little bit of time here on the bottom side, but Hansama's already pushing in top. If they do go to contest this Dragon, it will give him open avenue to go for that tier 2 tower. Mikyx is on the way up as well, so PerkZ is not going to have the easy prey he might expect, and with good vision control from Misfits, they're going to see him coming. Dragon's still going to get focused and will get taken down by G2 in the end without giving up much, so a small victory overall.
Yeah, so G2, they're looking forward, and really what they have to be focused on is getting some Quicksilver stashes, because you're against a Twisted Fate, you're against a Skarner that's a lot of single target CC that you really can't escape from. Jankos, he has a body slam, he has a flash, but you saw in the jungle a few minutes ago, there was no escape from him. We might get in a very similar situation right now because there's 3 members of Misfits surrounding him.
Jankos.
He does manage to secure it though, but he is playing with fire here. Sweeper comes out. They might find it. There's the headbutt pulverize. Oh, so much damage coming through. Jankos going to buy as much time as humanly possible. Wadid wants to body block. Hansama is exhausted, but maybe Mikyx going down. Also a little bit late there in the exchange, and now's the chance for PerkZ. He's going to go over the wall. He's going to look for Hansama. He wants to do a little bit more damage. Electrocute procs. Nullifying Orb is there, though, to stop Hansama from bleeding out, but the Ignite is so close.
That was actually really nicely done from G2. Jankos, he was walking in to face check the brush, but the rest of G2 was ready. Wadid was behind him. They were anticipating some sort of pick inside the jungle, and while there were 3 members of Misfits there right off the bat, they were lacking that full 5-man to end up coming away with the kill.
Now, note here the positioning of Misfits versus the positioning of G2. Jankos is cautious. He gets Canal Storm, but a good stopwatch buys time for Hjärnan and Wunder to get in position, then PerkZ to come in from the flank. This now becomes a 3 versus 5. Alphari TP's in, but he TP's into the back half of the fight, and Misfits can't do anything to keep their support alive. PerkZ does a great job of forcing Hansama out, and now that's a flashless and healless AD carry that PerkZ will have his eye on coming into the next exchange.
And Misfits are just so hungry to keep this snowball going. They want to close out this game. They don't want to give anybody a chance to scale in the late game. Not the GP, not the Kog'Maw. They do not want to let it happen. But now, playing a little bit too aggressive, giving up these small advantages may count against them.
And you do not want to make mistakes against a composition that has a Gangplank and a Kog'Maw on the other side. That is some beastly late game team fighting that, quite frankly, Misfits would struggle to go up against past that 30, 35, 40 minute mark. For right now, they have to focus on punishing side lanes, punishing G2 inside their jungle, and really using vision, try and bait a member like PerkZ to step a little bit too far forward.
Here we go. The knockup does manage to connect. They are going to chain the CC together. PerkZ is even going to be able to push anything else. He's flashing for his life. He's running, but he pushes it again! Oh, goes down.
Look at the facepalm from PerkZ. He knew he messed up. He even used his flash the wrong way too. Misfits find themselves a solo kill onto the star of G2.
We saw that same thing happen yesterday with Nuke Duck on the LeBlanc, but G2, they're bringing everyone up towards this top side to respond. But while that's happening, mid lane being pushed in by Misfits, bot lane being pushed as well. Misfits just have complete control over the map.
4K gold lead already, and they're looking to break down 2 tier 2s if possible. They're not going to get it this time around, but they have the Cho'Gath uncontested in the bottom. Sencux keeping Wunder in the mid for now. He's going to do his best to clear out 2 waves, while the rest of his team is all forced to stay here. They have to respect the potential for Maxlore to leap into that backline, but they've got excellent disengage to keep Hjärnan safe for now.
Hansama really stepping up so far in this game. We heard Shox talking about it on the analyst desk, where when she made her Misfits prediction, it was very much based on this young AD carry in the bot side of the map with all the different AD carries we've been seeing? Could he bring something new out? Will he go towards one of those scaling options? Well, no. He went towards an early game playmaker. He generated a huge lead in the 2 versus 2. He took the bot tower, and now he's working with Mikyx to find more kills. And with a 2-0-0 scoreline, he's going to be one of the big deciding factors in finding a win for Misfits.
And honestly, it's just a beautiful game from Misfits. We've always seen when anyone on this team gets a lead, it always goes to the rest of the team. This game, Alphari on the top side generating a lead. They bring Maxlore down to the bottom side to make sure these guys are winning too. And once this team is in control, it is so hard to take it away from them.
And this is what you do. Out of the fog of war, PerkZ, even though he has all these buttons he can press to try and escape, doesn't have the reaction time necessary to get away. And again, another superstar mid laner getting a little clumsy there with the LeBlanc going back when he really should not be.
And we have to look, the first half for Hansama versus the second half is a very different story. This guy looked like the prodigy he was supposed to be, the king of AD carries, arguably. Second half, that was not the case, but we may be seeing a turn here in the playoffs.
We certainly might be. This Kalista seems to be the perfect champion for Hansama to make use of his mechanics, find those early leads, and kind of revitalize that first half Hansama that many Misfits fans are hoping to see.
PerkZ going over the wall, bringing the rest of the team with him. Wadid ready to make a play. They're trying to shut down some individual members. Using a lot of resources there on the top side, though, means Alphari remains uncontested on the bottom side, just continuing to build up a CS advantage over this GP, 181 to 145.
Yeah, Alphari is just doing so well on that bottom half of the map at the moment. But you notice G2 actually have some pretty good vision to try and protect him on that bottom side from a rotation by Sencux. That's to avoid that TF coming in unexpectedly by having control over the river.
Now for G2, they still have the scaling option on their side. LeBlanc would like to have an early lead, and the fact that they have very few kills by the 20-minute mark is not looking good for PerkZ, and he might die again.
Surprise cow from behind, Mikyx now running. PerkZ figured it out this time. He knows how to juke it. He's not going to make the same mistake twice. Maxlore, though, is ready to point and click him down. I think that pause was realizing his opposition as a QSS, and PerkZ playing on the edge right there, trying to get in a bit of damage.
That's what you like to see from PerkZ, though. Still playing aggressive, not losing confidence, because when you're on a champion like LeBlanc, losing confidence means basically losing the game. You have to take risks going into the backline to make these plays work out and assassinate the backline.
And of course, if you want to watch PerkZ LeBlanc, twitch.tv/RiotGames2, look through the eyes of PerkZ, see how he plays this laning phase, although you would already have to watch, and now see how he plays the mid game, see how he finds those flanks, or if he can even find them.
And now that we're past the 20-minute mark, we have to talk about the Baron, because we know Misfits want to close out the game as fast as they can. And more specifically, the composition they have. Cho'Gath plus Kalista is so good at just owning objectives. The burst damage, 3,000 HP, you take that down with Smite on top. And on top of that, Hansama has Blade Through and King plus Ginsu's Rage Blade. So his objective damage is basically best in class.
Yeah, and for G2, they don't want to fight right now. They scale quite nicely as the game progresses. Wunder yet to complete his Stormrazor, which means that he's definitely not in a position to fight. And the overall 5v5 is not that great, but you still have the Hjärnan on Kog'Maw win condition as potential. But when you look at how he's going to be executed, I don't know if he has the enough peel to be able to defend against a Maxlore flashing onto his face with Predator, Mikyx being thrown in with the Hansama ultimate. It's really going to be if Misfits fail to utilize this mid-game lead, and about how well G2 can execute those late-game fights.
And terrifying, because that means pressure is not just on Hjärnan, but also on Wadid and Jankos to peel for him, to use those casts, to disengage, to stop anyone from getting to that vulnerable Kog'Maw. That is difficult, as you mentioned. Misfits comp kind of built to get into those back lines, and PerkZ going in on Hansama. Now seeing a little bit more here. Good damage comes in from the Kog'Maw. Ignite is ticking, but it's not quite going to be enough. Will force Hansama to back for now.
A little surprised not to see the Cannon Barrage come out there from Wunder to really go hard and try to secure that kill. Of course, Hansama does have heal, so it's not the teleport. We're maybe a little bit more used to seeing AD carries running in the past few weeks, so he will be off the map for about 30 seconds, and that should give time for G2 to get vision in their own jungle, because that's really the only time they've been punished, is when they don't actually know where the Misfits are.
My big concern right now for Misfits is that they've been in this position multiple times last split, and they threw in the mid to late game. Their mid game was really poor in terms of the decisions that they would often make. And I feel like that if you're G2, just sitting, playing patient, not giving away any further kills and not falling into any traps the Misfits try to set up is the best thing that you can do. Utilize your experience and utilize the strong individual playmakers that you have to turn this game back into your favor. Kalista will eventually fall off. She will not have the same teamfight impact that a Kog'Maw will. And G2 just need to buy time to get to that point.
Yeah, and when you see Kalista versus Kog'Maw, you really are reminded back to 2017 Worlds when this matchup was so common, and Kalista had to win early. Alphari, though.
That matchup, though. Alphari going in. PerkZ being warded off by Maxlore here, but Wunder, normally you just expect Gangplank to be able to clear the waves, to sit under the tower, and just be fine, but he is so far behind in this matchup, it feels like he has to be incredibly careful just to survive.
Well, Wunder's definitely going to keep struggling up against Alphari. Normally we actually see Grasp being taken into the Cho'Gath. Why am I bad with champion names today? But yeah, he's going for the Klepto. He went for the more gold-intensive build path, and he ends up getting punished for it during the laning phase. He's currently sitting at 0-2-1. And I always think of Gangplank as having a pretty solid mid-game spike because of the Trinity Force plus the Stormrazor, but because you're expecting more crit to be built out from him, he will have that big late-game threat as well. And I'm surprised the Misfits aren't pressuring the Baron more. I want to see them threaten this objective right now, because in terms of the two items, they feel stronger to me. They feel really good, especially with a level 15 Cho'Gath that has two big tanky items completed and a 4,000 gold lead. Misfits need to be using this lead that they have a little bit more and a little bit more aggressive.
And look, we highlighted this earlier. Short of a new jungle, this is literally the best comp you can possibly have for taking Baron. Kalista insane at killing it. Cho'Gath with almost the guaranteed secure from two different champions. So if there's ever a time to take a 50-50, well, it's not a 50-50 when you've got a Kalista. And Misfits are going to try to go for it. Mikyx can do what he can to try to disengage. It's just going to have to back off here. Hansam holding on to the ultimate for now, but what is going on?
Yeah, but look at this ward down in the river. They know what's happening actually.
Bot lane, because boom!
What?
That's it!
Okay, so Misfits, it was all a bait. It was just to draw attention away from the side lane where Sencux teleported to help find another kill onto Wunder, and this will be a tower going in favor of Misfits. I was really confused as to what Mikyx was
We were
doing.
baited too. G2 were like, classic Misfits hesitating around Baron. No, they weren't even going for it. It was a different play on the opposite side of the map.
Yep.
Misfits just outplaying G2, get a little bit of damage on that inhibitor tower as well, and this is, again, what we need to see more from them. Speeding up the tempo in this mid-game. Of course, you don't want to have these pesky wards from G2 in the river as well, so they have to do a better job clearing that vision away so that when the time comes and they want to fully commit onto that objective, they can secure it.
It's really challenging right now, though, for Misfits to gain priority anywhere, because the pick potential from Misfits is really strong thanks to the Twisted Fate and the Skarner with Predator. But this is what happens. You can see the rest of Misfits started up the Baron, and then the moment 4 members were spotted topside, Sencux just immediately teleports bot. Both of them use Flash, probably didn't need to do that, but they end up securing the kill and another tower, extend the gold lead ever so slightly. But this will get a little bit harder to execute. They can look to make the same play again, try and break into an inhibitor, and when that's gone, they can then look to secure the Baron. But I want to see Misfits continuing with this proactivity, and G2, they need to be finding some kind of pick here, with the LeBlanc perhaps, but he's a little far behind right now. Trying to find those solo kills will be challenging, and hoping for a Misfits mistake is kind of one of the few options that they have left, but they can't win these side lanes, so they're really running out of options.
Things looking difficult, but the good news for G2 is that they have paid the Skarner tax on all of their primary carries. Gangplank, of course, with the move Scurvy, and now 2 QSSs in the mid lane and AD carry position, respectively. So, don't have to be quite as scared of Maxlore, and this is a difficult spot for the Skarner to be in now. He did a great job building up the team early on, but of course, limiting that champion's impact means that Gragas is probably going to offer more as we get later in the game.
That is true, but I think that Maxlore, he just changes his focus now. Misfits focus on bursting down Jankos, bursting down Wadid, because if you look at the 3 carry champions of G2, if they don't have a front line, they are really going to struggle. They can use that Impale to knock down a Jankos and then access the backline, which will still be a good team fight setup here for Misfits.
And G2 just playing so safe. You can see Hjärnan just throwing in the Bio-Arcane Barrage, just trying to rain down on that Baron, just to make sure that it's not started. Mikyx and Hansama just rinsing and repeating on the top side of the map. They are begging PerkZ to leap into them so they can go for the chain CC.
I just love that Sencux is being kept mid lane while both the bot laners and jungle of Misfits are hanging around the top side of the map, because Sencux then can be free to roam either top side or bot side and just gives Misfits that much more priority and control over the Baron area, while Alphari just continues to
I was going to say, look at Alphari is miles ahead of the rest of his team, and it's that threat on Baron that lets him just walk up He doesn't have to be worried about anyone. You send 2, 3 people down, they get a Baron. That is the trade Misfits are offering. They say, you can kill our top laner, we're going to take the big purple worm if you do.
Exactly. Misfits, there's a Mountain Drake on the bottom side of the map, but they do not care. They just want to keep denying vision over this objective. Then the one time G2 think, oh, they're on that objective, they walk too far forward, the pick is found there by Misfits. But it's still such a tense situation because even G2 being down 5,000 gold can still punish Misfits if Hansama ever makes a mistake.
And look at Alphari, he can't decide what to do. He's constantly having his Alphari, Wunder is having his attention split. He wants to try and group with his team to help fight for Baron, but then he has to deal with Alphari in a side lane who he cannot 1v1, 2 levels down. Alphari is way too tanky and has enough damage to find another solo kill. Misfits having so much control of the map, but now they can't afford to throw it. Last split, we saw this happen multiple times with bigger gold leads. And as the Baron gets started off, keep your eyes on the minimap and what Sencux chooses to do.
Keep your eyes on Jankos as well. Mikyx now going to run. Can they take down Alistar before anything else happens? They know that the Baron has started. They must know. They do not have the vision
They're going
quite
bot
yet.
lane.
Now they're just going to commit bottom lane to look to grab an inhibitor. They might get the Baron as well. Are they going to hit their cake and eat it too at this stage? They've already taken down Wunder. PerkZ needs to find a way into the pit. They need a miracle at this point if they want to get anything back. Can they do it? 3K and dropping. Jankos can't get into the pit. Kalista secures it. Beautiful play from Misfits.
Misfits own the map. They know exactly what to do. This Twisted Fate pick from Sencux is just baffling the minds of G2. Misfits take them to pieces.
We talked about it. Just keep your eyes on Misfits as the keep your eyes on Sencux as the Baron was getting started off. He didn't try to group up with his team. He utilized the pressure that he had on mid to give him options. And he said, do I join for the Baron? Do I look for a pick on bot? You know what? I'm going to help Alphari out once again, and we're going to get an inhibitor because the rest of our team can just disengage. We can just back away from the Baron, but they did not need to because Mikyx does what Mikyx does, and he zoned away the rest.
So beautifully done here from Misfits. They don't give away that there's 2 members on the Baron for so long. Alphari pushes up to the tower. No one from G2 can respond, and Sencux disappears for 1 second. They get the pick, and that puts G2 into basically free-for-all. They do not know where to be on the map once you're in this situation because no matter what you do, it's a loss.
We talked about this matchup earlier in the week. We said, hey, this could be very G2 favored. The mid lane, PerkZ is so strong. It has to be an advantage for G2, and PerkZ is strong, but he hasn't been able to do anything this game. And on the opposite side, Hansama and Mikyx, 2 guys we knew had the potential to go off, to carry this game, looked so weak in the second half of the split, but they are showing up here today.
Yeah, I mean, now G2, they're up against this Baron buff. Already lost an inhibitor on the bottom side of the map. They have a losing side lane matchup. Alphari is taking it to Wunder. They have to play against the Globals. They look to force a fight. This is the best situation for them is to try and find a winning numbers battle, but Misfits can so easily disengage with Kalista.
And I feel like they're too far behind now. They do not get to make choices like we're just going to get this pick. It's we're going to just get this pick, but give up this inhibitor tower. Things are not that simple anymore for G2 Esports. Misfits has put them up against the wall, and G2 are going to have to make some very clutch decisions to get anything else.
And we always look at PerkZ for G2. Can he carry these games? Well, he had to pay the QSS tax. He's down in levels to Sencux. There's a Maw on Hansama, a Knight's Vow on Maxlore to buff him up. Assassinating the carry, the main source of damage from Misfits, is nearly impossible for him.
But G2 are going to have to rely on that mid laner to find some way back into the game. This LeBlanc hasn't had the impact that they would have wanted. We saw him picking Fizz in the tiebreaker, and he struggled to have an impact there as well. The pressure that falls onto PerkZ's shoulders is often insurmountable, and he's been able to live up to it in the past. But Misfits right now, in this first game of the best of 5, are putting too much pressure on him. They control all 3 lanes, and they have the Nexus in their eyes.
You had to think he's feeling fine in that early game, but then he sees his top laner die solo. He sees his bottom lane collapse, and suddenly he goes from comfortable setup, we will make it late, I will carry us through early, to seeing individuals on Misfits outclass his teams. It was Alphari finding kills. It was Misfits forcing those bot lane dives, and right now they are looking unstoppable.
It's just macro suffocation here from Misfits. It's not a high kill game. This isn't how Misfits typically won. They got a bunch of kills, and then they just blow the game open. No, it is controlled, it is calm, and it is precise. They know exactly where to attack.
May call it textbook, and something
You might.
that's been described as. Now the ulti being used to keep an eye on PerkZ and where he's off to. Alphari winning the game by himself, as he's done pretty much throughout this entire game.
Misfits are losing to a split, or winning with a split pushing Cho'Gath at the moment as they port into the bottom lane to just buff up this split push pressure. Alphari doesn't even have a Baron buff on him anymore, but he's still inside the base and drawing multiple members of G2 down.
This is terrifying for the side of G2. This is not at all how they expected the first game to go. So much of their planning has been thrown out the window now as they realize their vulnerabilities. Adaptation in Game 2 will be crucial. Perhaps a last desperation play here in Game 1 can turn things in their favor, but for now, it is a Misfits favored game, there is no doubt.
And a reminder, the last time these two teams met in a best-of-5 was the Summer Split Finals of 2017 in Paris. The crowd was going wild as G2 3-0'd Misfits. This battle wasn't even close, and now Misfits coming into this split are looking that much cleaner as G2 looks for a pick but can't quite find it because it's Hansama and Mikyx on this Kalista Alistar duo.
And you remember those finals. You remember Misfits pulling ahead in the early game, time after time, but G2 always bringing it back late game. Well, they don't have Sven and Mithy anymore, but they're looking at Hjärnan and Wadid and they're saying, come on guys, we can do this, we can get to those late game fights. Hjärnan has shown us, he's shown us those 8-0-8 VODS games. We know he has the potential, but are they gonna find the setup?
It's gonna be hard. They need time, but it's not like Hjärnan and Wadid played poorly in this game. They drafted themselves into a really tough matchup. They didn't die. They're still deathless at 33 minutes in, even against a super strong dual lane of Hansama and Mikyx. It really was just Misfits' great play around the map and great draft, knowing just how to use this Twisted Fate that have given G2 very few options other than just keep looking at their watches and wait for that game timer to reach 45 minutes.
But you brought it up. 35 minutes 40 was what VODS quoted us early. Yes, the QSS has set them a little bit behind, but this is where we expected G2 to maybe start being able to claw back. Now, I don't think you expected an 8K gold deficit, VODS, but this is at least a good sign for PerkZ that Misfits have struggled to close this far.
Well, Baron spawning in a minute and a half. For now, Misfits are conceding vision as they know that they'll be able to reclaim priority, but they might actually be looking for a pick onto Hansama. Ulti from Twisted Fate was used.
They have to be careful. Uh-oh! Be careful. Hjärnan, the double man knockup. Platform from Maxlore is a little bit awkward there, but it does manage to pull through in the end. Now Sencux is on the backside. G2 running for theirs live. TP on the backside. Alphari in the middle of everyone. That is one unkillable Cho'Gath, but the side steps are going to secure their safety. Hansama now running as PerkZ tries to find his way to the backside. Maxlore busts out the ult. He says, hey, one more for you, baby. But PerkZ gets out, but not for long. Nom. Alphari closing in and looking for the win.
G2 were the ones that tried to punish Hansama and Mikyx, but they turned it straight back around with a couple of teleports into the fight. Now the base is what they have in their eyes.
3 members dead, walking it down the top side of the map. Misfits set up to win this first game. Jankos and Wunder, I don't think they're going to be enough. The inhibitor now falling. The creep wave is now here. Alphari is absolutely unkillable. This has been a beautiful game 1 for Misfits thus far.
Absolutely incredible stuff. 2 Nexus turrets down. It's all Misfits.
That's all it takes. Nexus in the side of Misfits. They're going to play with their food. They're going to try to throw in a little BM, and they're going to get game 1.
Really clean stuff from the Misfits squad. They seem to have bounced back after a struggling second half of the split where they went 2-7.
You almost said 0. I was like, well,
that would be a good second half.
You missed those 7 games.
They're looking to go 2-0 in this series after securing their first win. G2 didn't really show us a lot. After falling behind in the early game, Alphari getting a bunch of solo kills, the bot lane 2v2 losing their tower, they just slowly bled out. And Misfits just kept control of the game. They were the ones constantly dictating the pace, and they once again used an early lead and closed out a pretty clean game.
And I think you just have to accept in these kind of games where it is just your opponent getting such a large lead so early on, hey, wipe it off, go to the next one. Didn't even happen. We're just playing at a slight disadvantage here in the best of 5. It doesn't matter, and you can see Grab's already focused now on preparing the next pick and ban, talking about the strategies that need to happen as this team adjusts coming into game 2.
Well, that's the thing. Misfits came in with such a clear plan. They knew they wanted to draft a super aggressive dual lane on the bottom side, and the Twisted Fate, of course, came out of the blue pretty much, but worked so perfectly for them. Now G2 have to go back to the drawing board and figure out not only what do we pick, but how do we beat this Twisted Fate if Sencux locks it in again.
It feels like that it was just a prepared plan entirely from the side of Misfits, and you already highlighted it, and this was a team that kind of just comes into best of 5s well prepared. They did it last year in summer, they did it going into Worlds, and they surprised many, and it's one of those things where now I'm kind of kicking myself because I'm like, I did it. I doubted this team. I expected them to be crushed by G2, and then game 1, they look super clean and super dominant.
So incredibly difficult, VODS, to call a winner here. But the winner tonight is going to join Schalke, Vitality, and Fnatic in Madrid on the 8th and 9th of September. Of course, you can get your tickets for the summer final at eu.lolesports.com/Madrid 2018. Of course, if you can't make it, you can also watch the action in one of our 254 cinema viewing parties in 30 countries all across Europe. You can visit eu.lolesports.com/cinemas for more information. I believe the cinemas is all lowercase, case sensitive. Very important, folks, if you want to find out that information. But guys, I don't even know who's going to come out on top here. It's hard to say. It feels like such a difficult game to call, but luckily we don't have to. To get some more insight on Game 1, let's head over to the analyst desk.
Also want to welcome Vitality's coach, Yamato Cannon, to the desk, joining us just in time for what many probably consider an upset. Now, I do want to go back to the beginning of the show where we talked about Misfits' possible roads and keys to victory, the Fish Show, and summarizing, we talked a lot about their early game.
Yes, we did. Obviously, there were two really big points we had to look at. First of all, winning the bot lane. It is the way Misfits have done so well in the first half of the split. It is also really good in the current meta and with the picks for Mikyx specifically. And then the second thing, of course, is make sure Sencux doesn't lose in the mid lane to LeBlanc. What did he pick in this game that made sure he couldn't lose?
Tank runes. Ooh.
Tank runes on Twisted Fate. Made it almost impossible for Sencux to actually die in this lane. And if you see this, the draft in itself, the first point about winning the bot side, Kalista Alistar.
Yeah. We talked a lot about, is Mikyx going to be freed up to play some different things? Not that Alistar is so crazy, but paired up with the Kalista that is playing to the bot lane strengths. And I think everyone wants to see Hansama and Mikyx in lane, you know it very well, wants to see them do well and pick these kinds of champions. Do you think this was the best move they made in the draft?
I think I really like the adaptation of Kalista. I feel like Misfits have a clear identity here with the Twisted Fate and the Skarner as well. I think buying QSS very early on is very hard, and they have this Twisted Fate composition to dive into bottom with Alistar Kalista. I think everything is very clear that they want to win early game and then transition into a 20-minute Baron and then take it from there. And I think in the current state of the meta is very good because you can only play tanks top lane.
We're probably going to see every game with this kind of draft where you have a jungler with CC who can actually create picks, you have a tank top lane, you have a mid lane who can roam, because then you don't have to play a pure 1v1 against PerkZ. It's all about playing with the team, and then, of course, a strong bot side.
And we did expect them to come out swinging in that bottom lane, and they did, but someone else stole the show, who we actually haven't talked about too much. Alphari solo kills Wunder twice in a row on Cho'Gath, and that, of course, generates so much map pressure for Misfits.
Yeah, fun fact, Yamato walked into the caster room just doing the pick and ban phase, and when he saw the GP blind, he was like, oof, that's risky. And then this happens.
It's really, really risky. Like in the first one, GP didn't get his vitamins. He could have eaten his fruits and maybe survived with a flash. But being in that position, you know, already when you pick GP, you know for sure that the game is going to be, you're going to be pressured up top lane. You're not going to win lane early unless you go maybe Grasp. But if you went Grasp in this case, you wouldn't have had money for Trinity Force by maybe 20 minutes. And looking at the draft of Misfits, knowing that they have a Kalista, they have a Skarner, already there it's very hard because you know they're going to force at 20 minutes. GP is something that wants to scale, and that is the reason why we see so little GP, because he doesn't get to scale. 20-minute Baron, that's where you need to be useful, and GP just isn't. And I think in the current state, they had the opportunity to last pick top lane, and I think that's what they should have done for Wunder.
So if we look at how G2 came into this game, why do you think they made the decisions they did with the Kog'Maw, who is very scaling, with the Gangplank, who needs some time?
I think there's a chance they say in game 1, we want to see if Misfits can actually execute around Baron. Obviously, Misfits helped themselves a lot by having Kalista Cho'Gath, but it did slow down a lot. After 20 minutes, despite all the advantages, the composition that could just fly around with TF and
create picks. Did they not push it quickly enough, their advantage? Because there was a time in the mid game and I was like, all right, Misfits is now shown, okay, we can play early game, but how did they do in the mid game?
I think, I mean, we sat backstage and said, okay, there is actually a chance that Hjärnan does get to full late game here. And G2 did suddenly have time to scale. So their strategy wasn't necessarily super bad in a game 1 of trying to read exactly what Misfits is doing. The problem is the GP fell way further behind than he was supposed to, and which made it a lot harder to actually use him. But we did see Misfits slow down in that mid game, despite having effectively all the tools to just run over G2.
Yamato, as a coach, Misfits is a team that have now done really, really bad, actually, for the last couple of weeks. They couldn't amass any early game leads. Now that they're back in that mindset of getting early game leads, is it logical that they're not flawless yet in that mid game team fighting or in that mid-game decision making, or should they be further into game one?
I think, of course, when you're in their position, they had a lot of issues, and I think it's tricky from an outside perspective to pinpoint what it is, because on the inside, they probably notice their issues better than us. But I think when you view their last games, it's been just horrendous in every case. No early game, no mid game, so it's very hard to judge what comes after. And I think they made it very easy for themselves with this draft. They have an early game execution and they have a very clean plan to go 20 minutes at Baron. And I think if some of these pieces go away and it becomes harder, I can imagine it becoming tougher for Misfits.
What does
to close
this game
it out.
look like if Cho'Gath doesn't get 2 early kills solo?
They still win, but they get punished more for the plays around Baron that took time to set up.
And let's take a look at those, because it did take a while for Misfits to pull the trigger, but due to the advantage and due to Alphari and Sencux basically killing Wunder all the time, they had a lot of freedom.
Yeah, they kept doing this because they knew Alphari would always just push in Wunder who's stuck under a turret, and it actually made G2 now kind of question, should we go back to try and defend the inhib, or do we have to run to Baron? You can see how Hjärnan was stuck in the mid lane for quite a while, so he wasn't here to actually do anything.
Casually, Mikyx holding off for members
Of course,
the
Mikyx
Baron.
and the Alistar, and then this one right after where the path from the bot lane of G2 is obviously on the wrong side. Misfits do manage to find a collapse, despite actually not being here instantly, but they have TP plus, of course, the Twisted Fate. So we did have some concerns right there regarding mid-game, but let's just say that this was a giant positive first game. I'm not sure if that's English, but it was a very great first game from Misfits compared to what we've seen in the second half. And the fact they did sit with this kind of goal graph shows that they're definitely looking to take down G2 today.
When we look into their last weeks and how streaky it was after that loss to Fnatic, hopefully for them, they can turn this into a positive momentum for the next 2 games or possibly the next 4 games, because G2 are not out of this yet. So Yamada, I'd like to know from you what the positives were from G2 in game 1 and what they should look to build on.
I think the tricky part about G2 is I feel like their draft really lacks any identity. What are they playing for? They have a LeBlanc, they have a GP, they have a Kog'Maw in the bottom. I felt like they just played or picked champions to have decent lane matchups, and I felt like that's about it. I think Misfits came in with a clear identity. They want to force Baron at 20 minutes. What were G2 waiting for with their composition? Was it just PerkZ getting ahead with LeBlanc?
Looked like it.
As long as Sencux is going Resolve with Grasp, then that's not going to happen.
Also, Jankos went top in his first gank. I'm like, I sat him back to him and went like, he gets Predator, he goes mid. And they try and get the first kill on TF, or force his flash. And then they return gank mid. And the moment TF is shut down, PerkZ can actually move to bot side or top lane, whatever he needs to go. And suddenly Misfits can't snowball.
Yep.
But Jankos went top on the first gank, got a flash, and then that was it. TF just got a free farming, time, blah, blah, blah. He goes bot lane the first time, they secure a turret. And that surprised me. I thought actually we were going to run straight for mid lane with the LeBlanc pick for him. And that would maybe have set up some sort of identity towards the pick PerkZ got.
Oh, definitely. That's all we said in the pregame was also you want to enable PerkZ and you want to see Jankos and PerkZ invest time in each other. But it feels like because of the chaos on the map, due to those solo kills top, due to the TF going everywhere, the Kalista swapping lanes, G2, they had too much to deal with and too much to fix in too little time.
And not enough tools.
And not enough tools to do it. So, yeah, we will see what they do in game 2. Misfits has chosen red side, so we will see. We asked the real Misfits to please stand up, and in game 1, rather, they certainly did. We'll see if they can take us to match point when we return.